Today marks the 128th day since Russia first invaded Ukraine, and the war still rages on. Tens of thousands are dead. Conservative estimates point to more than 10,400 killed so far. Many of those civilian casualties, and the end of the war is nowhere in sight. Today, new weapons going to Ukraine. President Biden announcing another $820 million in military aid to Ukraine, including advanced surface-to-air missile systems developed by Raytheon Technologies. In total, we've committed about $6.9 billion in aid to Ukraine since the beginning of the invasion. Let's talk more about it with Colonel Daniel Davis. Colonel, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Nolan.
First off, I want to focus on this military aid. President Biden says he'll be announcing soon. The new weapons package will include anti-aircraft defense, artillery, other equipment that will be unveiled. How is this going to help Ukraine? Is it simply just that need to fight back?
Well, that's really the bottom line. It's everything you send is useful and helpful to some degree, but you have to look at it in the larger picture, in the larger scheme of things. Is this going to tip the balance? Is this going to help the Ukraine, first of all, create a stasis situation where they can at least stop the Russian advance, and then later on roll them back, back into Russia? And the truth is that right now they're not even coming close to getting a stabilized situation. Russia is continuing to methodically move west from the east to the west, especially through the Donbas, and taking city after city. And so far, all of these things, even the M777 howitzers we provide, continue to get knocked out, just like the Ukraine stuff did before that. So it's helpful, but by itself, it's just not enough. I mean, altogether, the West stuff is not enough to change the outcome.
Well, let's talk about the aid package in totality, Colonel. We've given Ukraine nearly $7 billion in military aid. What difference has the aid made, really, and I hate to say this, but if any difference?
Well, it hasn't. It hasn't made it in terms of the outcome of the war. Now, everywhere these things have been, been some video recently about some of the HIMARS, high sophisticated rocket systems have been in place. And when they're effective, or when they're used, they're effective. When some of the 777s are used, they're effective. Stingers, they're effective when they're used. But in context, with all of the tens of thousands of daily rockets and artillery that the Russians are firing against the Ukraine side, and the amount of troops that are being killed, it just can't be sustained on the Ukrainian side. And that's one thing I think people are not taking enough attention to. They look at the numbers of systems, but they're not looking at it in the context and in terms of how it's affecting the flow of the war. It's just not really making any difference so far.
Russia has for the first time announced they're running low on weapons. We keep thinking, what is going to turn this tide? What is going to end this war? Could this ultimately be about who runs out of munitions first?
Well, we got to look at that with a grain of salt, because the reports don't actually say they're running out of weapons. What it shows you is that Russia is going into a wartime mobilization, and they're bringing civilian industry in, and they're converting other kinds of industry into war-making industry, which is reasonable and understandable. They have a lot of stuff. They have a lot of ammunition. They have a lot of systems that can put into place. And by the way, they have tens of thousands of tanks, artillery pieces, and armored personnel carriers in their inventories that they can pull from. And they've lost a lot, but it's not even a tenth of what they have. So they would have to go a long way before they actually run out. And I think that these measures they're taking is going to make sure they don't run out.
128th day, I think a lot of Americans ask this question: when and how will this end? I mean, is this headed to someone surrendering, or is this when someone actually overtakes the other, whether Ukraine pushes Russia back or Russia completely takes over the country of Ukraine?
Well, those are both at least theoretically possible, all those outcomes you just mentioned. But the issue really right now is what have we seen so far? What is the balance of power so far, and who has the best chance to succeed? And tactically speaking, that's the Russian side right now. And the reason is because they have hundreds of thousands of additional trained troops that they have from which to draw. They have significant advantages in the air power and in air defense. And of course, they have no shortage of ammunition, which Ukraine actually is running far lower than the Russians are. And when you look at all that together, and then you look at how methodically they're moving through the Donbas area, The question is, can Ukraine continue to resist so that this thing gets into, the fall and into the winter, which I'm not sure it's going to. And even though a lot of Ukraine experts are saying, oh, yeah, we'll change the tide in October and we'll turn things around, but there's no practical path to get there. So I'm real not sure where that's coming from.
Colonel, thank you for your time. This has been a fantastic conversation. Hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks. Same to you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.